gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Welcome in, it's Petty Officer Romero for Job Corps, and we have yet another training video for you. Today's subject is going to be testifying. Okay, so we've already talked about your appearance. We've talked about your professionalism. We've talked about your note-taking. We've talked about all of the things that in the previous videos. Here's where a lot of it comes together and where you get to demonstrate your training, your professionalism, and all of the things that you've learned throughout your training and demonstrate it in a professional environment. So now you have legal and quasi-legal situations. Legal situations, obviously, you're going to testify in front of a judge. Quasi means that it's some sort of legal situation, but it's not always a court and it's not always a judge. You could be testifying in front of lawyers, giving them your whatever information. So first thing that you want to do is you should always be positive. Okay, let's keep the right attitude. We want to go in there with a professional. We talked about it like an interview. You sitting up straight, you looking professional, you've shaved, you've done your hair, you've made sure that you're dressed properly. So let's be positive. So when we go in there, we want to have a professional and positive attitude. And you want to sell yourself to the judge or to the lawyers or whoever else you're presenting your information to, because listen, your testimony is not, how do I say this, a given. It's not, while you might look at it as fact, people are going to hear what you have to say. People are going to hear what everybody else has to say, and they're going to make a determination of what they believe and how they believe things went down, because whatever picture one side's going to paint, the other side, meaning prosecution and defense, the other side's going to paint the opposite picture. So the jury is going to have to decide who has the most credibility, whose story, whose information sounds most correct. And so when you walk in there and you're giving your information, your recollection of the situation, the jury and your credibility is going to go a long way in whether or not the jury believes you or how much weight your information, your testimony is going to have towards the outcome of the trial. So, I already mentioned, be neat, clean, and conservatively dressed. You want to make sure, again, none of this is new. If you've been around me and my class, none of this is new. You're going to want to be professional. You're going to want to look the part of someone who you can respect and that they understand that the information you came from a reputable person. So that is something that we've talked about over and over, and you will continue with it in this situation. That's why I repeatedly talk about your professionalism, your dress, the way that you handle yourself, carry yourself, because these are situations that will come up over and over. Okay, and we talked about it. Shoulder square, stand up, just like an interview. We had a whole segment just like an interview, and it's the same thing. You want to sit there with confidence. You want to make sure that you look professional. Project your voice. Okay. Hey, I'm doing a radio show. I do videos here, and you don't want to be monotone. You don't want to talk like this. You want to say what you have to say with authority and project and sound confident in what you're saying. And again, all this matters when the jury decides what they believe and what they put most of their weight into their decision. Okay. Answer yes or no to questions posed by counsel or the judge. When you're on the stand, it's not really a time to embellish. Not time for you to over-explain things. Not time for you to get into the minutiae and the details. You want to be as concise, meaning as small and as few words and as, no other word I could say other than concise as possible. You just want to keep it as tight as you can. So when you have to clarify something, you can, but you don't want to offer up things that make things unclear, or so in other words, keep it concise and answer the questions and let the lawyers walk you down the path that they're interested in. You are there to provide information, not tell a story. Okay? So as they start painting their picture, they're going to ask you questions, and you should be able to go out and explain the things in a concise manner. Answer yes or no questions is ideally what you want to do. It's not always possible, but ideally you don't want to get into over explaining things that they didn't even ask you about. Okay? Have everything and we talked about this in note taking. Have everything prepared. Your report should be prepared. This should not be something where you're on the stand trying to figure out how things went and what happened and what did you really mean by this. You should go into it prepared. Okay, you're going to want to keep in mind that anything that you bring to the stand, your notes, your report, can be examined by the opposing attorney. Now, this is where we talk about being professional, using, proper grammar, using the proper words. We talked about our vocabulary words, because you don't want to do anything that would cause you to lose credibility. And I say do anything. If your grammar's poor, if your spelling's poor, if you didn't take time to actually write out a professional report, it could be embarrassing and then ultimately lead to you not being a credible witness. So only refer to the notes when necessary. You don't want to sit there and just read from the notes. What you want to use it for, if necessary, is to refer to it. Like if they were to ask you for a date or a time, you could say, I don't recall exactly what time it is, but I do have it in my notes. And if they want it, then you can say, okay, it happened at 7:32 a.m. or 07:32. You just don't want to sit there and just read verbatim from the notes. It's unprofessional and it doesn't lend to credibility. So that's even more reason why you would, prior to going to court, you want to make sure that you review your notes and you refresh your memory on what actually happened. And keep in mind, the legal system is a slow turning wheel. So it could be literally years since the incident happened, and now you're being asked to remember things that happened. So you're going to want to make sure that you refresh your memory on this and review your notes. All right. So you want to avoid showing any sarcasm or disgust towards the defendant. You may be aware of things that happen in the situation, and you might have your own opinion, but you want to avoid doing anything that might show biased or unprofessional behavior. Don't even be afraid to say something positive about the defendant. I mean, if it was a situation where you say, well, he was provoked, I mean, he may have overreacted. There are things that there's nothing wrong with painting a picture that's accurate. It doesn't have to be that this person was a disgusting human being from the minute that I walked onto the scene. There could be positive things about the way that person behaved that you want to share with the courtroom. Again, you kind of want to go with the flow, keep it at a minimum. You don't want to give more information as necessary, but don't be afraid to tell the truth, okay? So you don't feel like you're painting a picture for one side or the other. You're telling your recollection, and if that recollection means that the guy who ended up, beating somebody up, you feel he was provoked, and that question is asked, then you share the information. So let's make sure that we're professional and we're objective. All right. So never try to argue with the judge or an attorney. It's not your job. It's not your position. You answer the question. You keep a positive spin on it. Try to keep your demeanor, because you can be frustrated, and sometimes the lawyers, their job is to try to frustrate you, to discredit you. So if you're up there and you start getting no, man, come on, no, you want to, no, yes, sir. I mean, did he offer assistance? Yes, sir. He absolutely offered assistance. He helped the person, blah, blah, blah. Now, this might be all after he beat the crap out of him, but if they ask you a question, you answer the question. There's no need to try to spin. That is not your job or responsibility. Your job, your responsibility is to answer the questions. Simple as that. All right. So the next thing is, if unsure as to what occurred, say so. If your memory fails you, if you're not sure, you say, you know what, I don't recall that. I think that if memory serves me properly, I believe that this did happen, or that it was this time, or the situation was that. But there are certain things that you may not be 100% positive about, and don't be afraid to say that. It is okay to not remember every single thing that happened in that situation. All right. If you don't understand a question, ask them to repeat it. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm sorry, could you repeat that question? I'm not understanding what exactly you're asking me. Nothing wrong with that. Don't be afraid to admit if you're wrong, and be honest in all matters. You can never go wrong, because keep in mind, there's a thing called perjury. So if you're in there and you say something that is, first of all, knowing that it's inaccurate, you're setting yourself up for some serious problems. But at the same time, if you're wrong about something, you could say, well, when I wrote that report, I felt this way, but things came to my attention later that made me realize that was not accurate. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Let's see. Critique your performance when you're done. We had a whole video about interviewing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with going through and interviewing, looking at your interview or your testimony and saying, man, I wish. As a matter of fact, I shouldn't say there's nothing wrong with it. You should review your testimony and become better at it, so you can become more professional. When you started realizing that you got a little frustrated because that person did something they shouldn't have done, and you don't care for him, and you started getting a little frustrated. Maybe you kind of said something to his lawyer as he was trying to defend the guy and prove you wrong. You got a little frustrated. Next time you realize that you're a professional. This is not a personal situation for you. You are there to provide information, and next time you're going to be more professional when you do it. Find your mistakes and improve on it. Matter of fact, not just in this situation, in all situations, you should be looking for ways to improve. That's how you go from being entry level to a top executive, is always finding ways to improve. All right, so there you go. That's how we do some testimony. That's how we present ourselves in court. If you have any questions, always available to answer them. Always interested in a good discussion with you guys. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave some feedback. Always interested in hearing what you guys have to say. So for Job Corps, I'm Petty Officer Romero. We will see you on the next video.
Tell me what you gonna do, what you gonna do. Yeah, bad boys, what you gonna do, what you gonna do when they come for you. Bad boys, what you gonna do, what you gonna do when